Hi, I'm Tuba,
Hi, I'm Muna.
and you're listening to
On
and Off
the Record.
the Record.
All right, should we do that again? Because we just needed a minute.
Yeah,
Warming up,
let's do it again.
warming up, warming up.
Yeah, let's take it.
Okay, so who wants to
I'll
go?
start. I'll start. Okay. Hi, I'm Tuba,
Hi, I'm Muna.
and you're listening to
On
and Off
the
the Record.
Record. Okay.
We really can't time it.
It's fine. So, Duba, we've come back after a really long time because there was weddings and flus and coughs and a bunch of things, and you have some big news.
Yeah, I got a new job. I'm the content manager at the Bad Lab.
Yay! But also for me, boo, because that means you're moving.
Yes, I am relocating to Islamabad, but hopefully we'll still be able to do the podcast or a Zencaster, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So last time we spoke, we let people know that we were going to talk about bad bosses. And I think a lot of people assumed, rightly so, and to some extent, that we'd be talking about
Them.
all these horrible stories. Yes. But, we talked to our lawyer and he said we can't do that.
Yeah, we can't.
Right?
But I mean, it was really interesting. I feel like what we heard and what we know as well. I think there's so much that goes into making a bad boss and a good boss. So I think we do have something good to share with the people.
So do you remember a few weeks ago, I posted a question on Twitter asking about women's bathroom in the
Yeah,
newsrooms?
I
So
remember.
I got a few responses and DMs, and actually it made me realize that it's a very good definition of bad bosses. I'll tell you why, because
Mm-hmm.
almost all the stories that I heard from DMs, I then went and started talking to people, and without fail, almost all the stories pointed to bathrooms being, just gross. So some places have a key system where like some women have a key and some don't. And this also happened to me recently. And I told administration that this key system was a caste system, but that kind of went over their head. And then I started not locking the bathroom door. I just wouldn't lock it because I thought it was really offensive. And the women who had the key complained to me saying no, because women who don't have the key make the bathroom dirty. And I just thought, wow, the key was a symbol of power. And having the key meant that you were sort of at the table. But my question was, the table to what? The pot is the same, ladies. What's happening here? Don't blame the women, but I think women's issues are always at the bottom of the ladder when it comes to management. But this to me really is an example of just what bad bosses is all about, that this issue was not even given any consideration.
I have never had the bathroom key. I didn't even know about it. I knew there was a locker system at one of the places that I used to work at, but there was like I was never given a key, and just going to the bathroom on a Sunday was terrible because the bathroom lady didn't come to clean it. The lights were always off. It always gave a very, very haunted vibe. And I mean, I was one of the only women in the newsroom that day. So, I mean, I didn't really want to venture out or do anything. And who wants to use a dirty bathroom? But I think almost every place that I've worked at, except for maybe more corporate positions, the bathroom has always been an issue.
And
Like, it's like they don't
so
think about women.
they really don't. And I know that in Mrs. Mustafa's memoir about her years at Dawn, and then she came to CJ and gave a talk about her memoir, she writes about this, at how when she joined, if I remember correctly, in 1975, she had a bathroom built. So that's in the mid
Really?
70s. Yes, so that it was on the floor. That bathroom that we've all used, Dawn, we can credit Mrs. Mustafa for that.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Mustafa.
But I once went to a bureau in Islamabad of a TV channel, and there was no bathroom for women in that small bureau. And so
Mm.
women went downstairs to a restaurant to use the toilet. And I was so horrified when I asked them why they didn't tell the news director. They said that उनको शर्म आती थी to talk about this. This was
Um,
like in the 2000s, when all the TV channels had started opening up. Their bureau was
yeah.
small. I'm sure it's now changed, but I bring this up because it's just an example of, again, women's issues. Uh,
Hmm.
just recently, somebody was telling me that they know of places where, again, small offices, and it's a space issue.
I mean, I work at a media organization where the bathroom, like we used to work in the basement, the bathrooms on the first floor, where it was used by us and the management. And since it was the cleaner bathroom because it would get regularly cleaned, everyone used it. So I mean, like we once, I remember like I had to wait for like five other people to go before me. Even though the men had their own bathroom, they would still go to that bathroom because it was cleaner. So I don't know, like I feel like it's easier to sideline women in these situations. Also,
So bathrooms is a good place to start and talk about. So for me, that kind of represents, from a structural point of view, what bad bosses are,
mhm,
where their priorities lie. But this idea of who gets the key and who doesn't, to kind of use it as an analogy for something else, is like who gets paid more and who doesn't get
yeah,
paid, because that's something that is really coming across in all our discussions. And there's a lot of resentment, and rightfully so. Why does this person get hired at way more than I do when they don't even have the experience? And sometimes
hmm,
it can be something like because they have better language skills, but they may not have news sense. So, this disparity in salary, something that I want to talk about, disparity in salary and in how the salary is paid. We're talking at a time where we know our friends in various organizations have not
hmm,
been paid for months.
yeah.
And apparently, like we all know, there's an economic crisis. Like we're in meltdown mode. Thankfully for everybody, we're not going to analyze it. But we're
No, but
in
I think
meltdown mode.
yeah, but I think it's a really important thing to discuss. Like I remember this one place where I was about to join, we were in like salary negotiations, and when I was talking to the editor and the HR person about salary, they were like, "Well, I can only offer you 60,000 rupees." Now this is like at least like a minimum of 5 years ago, I think, maybe more than that actually. And I was like, I make more than this. Why would I come to you at a pay cut? And the editor's response to me was like, oh, well, that's how much everyone else in the newsroom makes. And like, if I give you more money, like, what will I tell them? You don't have that much experience. And I was like, that is, that is peanuts. How do you expect anyone to run their house on that money or like survive? Like, that's nothing. And it became a real thing. And I didn't join immediately, but then eventually I had to go. But I mean, it really stunned me. I was like, someone's been on that desk for 20 plus years and making 60,000 rupees and no sign of him like getting him or her, sorry, getting a promotion or like even getting like a pat on the back for like doing a good job, like nothing. So, and then on the other hand, you also like, you have the editor's favorites, which you have in every organization, by the way, who do get paid a little more, who do have a little more privilege than the rest. And it was just like it's a really it creates a really toxic environment. And obviously, at the end of the day, it is the boss, right? Like the boss is the person creating such an environment.
Right. And I think, though, something you said made me sad, and I think I've been there myself, and I think a lot of people will relate to this, is when you said I had to take it eventually. And I think it's this
Hmm.
scenario where my guess is, why did you have to take it?
I need the money.
There you
I needed the
go.
job.
So people are staying in situations. Nobody wants to be at a place where they cannot afford daily
Yeah.
living, but they're also not able to find jobs. So they put up
Hmm.
with bad bosses.
Hmm.
I mean, you and I have spoken separately and also together to some people, and there are people
Hmm.
who left organizations because they couldn't work with their boss and
Yeah.
then couldn't find another job and ended up back with their bad bosses because they had no choice.
Mona, I have been in that position.
Oh, uh-oh. Oh,
Yeah, I
was
have been.
it, did I just spill your story? No. Okay. For
uh,
sure, I did not spill your story. I was talking about someone else, but sorry.
it's okay.
Again, this isn't to
I mean,
shame anybody. It's to say this is what we have.
yeah. I think there was a point in my career where I was just like, do I even want to do this anymore? And I left my job and I was just trying to figure out what I want to do, and it just seemed easier to find a similar gig, and like at least it'd be money that I'd be getting. But what I didn't realize is I just walked back into a cycle of toxicity, and it just, I mean, I couldn't do it for that long. I think I left in 5 months. And I've been much happier since, just trying to figure out what to do with my life. Like I feel like one major issue that, I mean, I don't know if anyone else feels this, is that when you've been in the newsroom for at least 10 years, or maybe even 5 years, you kind of feel like you can't do anything else. Like the newsroom kind of just, it just becomes who you are. And it feels very difficult, or like, I mean, I found it really tough to find another job and, like, adapt. But I mean, I think you can, because the newsroom teaches you so much stuff that you don't learn at like other jobs. Um, and like, I don't know if I make sense, but I just feel like, bad bosses, getting stuck in a rut, it really does take a toll on your self-esteem as well. And like, as a journalist, like so many of us suffer from an imposter syndrome, and a bad boss just like makes all this worse.
Bad boss story when I was working abroad, and for me, it was the intimidation and veiled threats. I was working in the Middle East, and my visa was tied to my job. So I really felt like I couldn't stand up to my bully of a boss because I knew I could get fired. And getting fired is so easy, no matter how many contracts you sign, because they can
Yeah.
always find ways and create jobs. And now everyone sympathized with me on the floor, but nobody could do anything because he was the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience since, I haven't had like, I mean, that was truly a horrific of a boss. Since then, the only thing that's been constant for me is this realization that HR always works for the boss. And I've learned this
Yeah.
in Dubai, I've learned this in Hanoi, I've learned this in Karachi, I've learned this in the universe, that
Yeah.
the universe works for the boss. And the
Mm-hmm.
boss is either your line manager, and if it's your line manager is working for the head of the
Mm-hmm.
department for the owner. So really
Mm-hmm.
they're protecting the interests of the owner. And that to me is where I want to lay all the blame, because HR's policy is really head in sand.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stand, I don't know who is telling anybody in whether top management, top editor, top owner, whatever, that this disparity in pay scales is unfair.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
And
also like, sorry, I'm cutting you.
no,
You
you're
continue.
not. Please.
No, it's also like, when you go ask for a pay raise, they make you feel so, I mean, I've been shamed. Like, do you really need more money? Like, like I remember someone told me, they were like, but your dad probably made money, like his salary in dollars, right? Like you have a rich dad. Do you really need money? I was like, yes.
Oh my God. My
I make my own money. And this was like someone in HR, right? And I was like, who are you? Like, I'm doing my job.
My father was a banker, is retired now, and was
Hmm.
known to the one of the editors at Dawn. So when I said that I want a pay raise, I was told, I'm friends with your father. I know where you live.
But
Which,
like, what does that mean?
so here's the thing though, like, I was so, frankly, like, I'm so dumb because I was like, oh my God, you're right. So mean of me to ask that because you do, like, I was shamed into asking because I
Yeah.
felt I have privilege. I have a driver who drops me. I don't have to worry about savings. All this stuff was told to me and I bought into it. And guess what? I'm now 50 years old, broke, and don't have
Yeah.
savings. So really,
I feel you because I'm in
I,
the same boat.
yeah, not 50 though. Not gonna.
Yeah, not 50, but like
But
those
yes,
zero
because
savings.
I was shamed into it, and I do want to acknowledge that I am able to do a lot of the things I'm able to do, like not worry about rent, because my father made much smarter decisions. But that just means that I made dumb decisions about being a journalist. I mean, I don't want to think that, but I sometimes question it at 50.
I really do question it all all the time. Like, what was I thinking? Why didn't I just become a doctor? I would have made more money. But I mean, like, for me, I used to love journalism. I used to love finding a story. I used to love writing it. But the newsroom and like several bad bosses just killed my spirit. Like I just don't feel the same way anymore. Like if someone asked me to go back in the newsroom right now for X amount of money, I'd say, you know what? No, thank you. I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that.
So I think that we have to talk about the corporatization of the media, which has really
Mm-hmm.
resulted in media, like everybody trying to protect the owner's interest soon. Because I've been talking to senior journalists and people like people with more academic background than I, like Tausif Ahmed Khan, who's
Mm-hmm.
a scholar on media, and really learning from them. And I think it's important to for them and us to share that knowledge with younger journalists and understand when that corporatization started, because I had a chat with Badr who said that, most of us tend to put that period as the Musharraf era, as when that's when the media opened up, and there's truth to it. But really, he was rightly telling me that we could go back to the 80s and the 90s to see
Mm-hmm.
new entrants into the field. And so, for example, you had the Frontier Post, which, I mean, I'm quoting him directly. He says, we all know where the money came from. Insert, like dodgy music. And
Mm-hmm.
but what happened with that money was that, yes, maybe there was dodgy money background, but you had a very fiercely independent editorial team that pursued and did good journalism, and that it's still remembered for being a very good paper. And then you also then, though, the 80s and the 90s, you still saw a lot of, papers coming in, or people thought that this was a great way to sort of whiten black money. And then
Mm-hmm.
in the Musharraf era, you also saw like a lot of people using dicey money and putting it into the media to sort of whiten the money. But also then you had big corporations who weren't coming from dodgy backgrounds, but saw that, hey, I can come into the media and buy influence.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of, Badr was saying, has destroyed the professionalism of journalism, of editors, of editorial managers, of like balance in newsrooms when it came to salaries. And now it's just so distorted, where we just said some people get salaries in the millions. I've been hearing some numbers, and because I'm so poor, I can't believe them. But people, like we're talking people like 30 lakh plus in a month. And I'm being very like,
What?
no, it's higher too. But when I get offline, I'm going to tell you what I heard some of the top people make. The paper is
Mm.
not getting, their staff is not getting paid on time. And if they are getting paid, they're so piddly. I don't even know how they subsist on those salaries. What
Wow.
message do you send? So if you're in a publication which has had a pay cut and it's not been restored, like like salaries were restored
Mm-hmm.
for business recorder, some publications have not had their salaries restored because it's, a financial issue. But said organization is launching new products in
Hmm.
digital media. What message do you send people at the paper?
We don't value you.
There you
You're
go.
shit. I mean, but
Yeah.
that's how I felt. Like I was a dom when the pay cut happened, and I was really upset because when we read that memo, it was like, what do you mean? What are you doing? Because you don't like. I felt like the management should have shared. If the company was going through a financial crisis, you should have told your employees. You should have taken them in the loop. It shouldn't have just been the union. You should have had like an open conversation because it came as a shock to so many people. And it was upsetting news. And we protested and everything. But it just it just still happened.
Well, this brings us to unions.
Mm-hmm.
What are unions doing? But what's happened with the unions as well? I mean, if we look at Pakistan's history of fighting for the freedom of the press from, I'm going to say, day one, it's so rich. And then
Mm-hmm.
with this corporatization of media, the period that I talk about, you also saw some kind of strange corporatization within press unions, which
Mm-hmm.
is that they suddenly became, quite chummy with media owners. And the questions to ask them, yes, I'm saying this, is whose interests are you serving?
Mm-hmm. Their own,
Whose?
obviously.
By which I mean, you want to tell us about how you've been trying to get some answers as to why people aren't getting paid their salaries. How has that experience been trying to get that answer?
It has been very difficult because obviously no one wants to say anything. Off the record, a lot of people have mentioned things, but there's no answer, right? Like, I know so many people who've worked for different organizations where they haven't been paid for 4 months, and I actually know people who left one organization and are still waiting 5 years later for them to pay them for like 3 4 months of salaries. But it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's not like they have a formula. It's not like there's a pattern or anything. It's just like they just don't want to give people money. And on the other hand, when Arab News, Indie, and these websites came on the block, they kind of like gave people a lot of money. Like, I know someone who was making $1,500 as a reporter for one of these websites. And from like getting 70, 80,000 rupees to $1,500 was a major pay bump.
Well, so for me, this is kind of I've seen this movie before. When the
Mm-hmm.
Tribune started, the Express Tribune back in
Yeah.
the day, they they launched a great paper in that they hired they hired people. We had like LUMS graduates coming into the newsroom. We hadn't seen that at such a big scale before in English
Mm-hmm.
language newspapers, and they were paying very good salaries. They had launched a great paper in that it was well designed, well thought out, very young team, bahut reporters on the desk. You were at the Tribune as well, yes?
I was, but my experience when it comes to salary was actually quite different. While the Tribune was paying more than market value, the Tribune had a very weird system in terms of salary internally. For example, someone who had studied at LUMS would get 40,000 rupees, but someone who had studied at KU would get 25, even if they were
Uh,
at the same position. And if you
wow.
studied abroad, you could negotiate for a higher salary.
Yeah. Uh, that's the kind of disparity, the value that you
Hmm.
place on a foreign degree versus a local
Yeah,
degree,
but
rather
it
than,
also made me wonder, like, that's just like when you look at it educationally, right? What about the gender pay gap? Were the men getting paid more? Because I only spoke to the women about how much they were making. I don't know if the men made more.
well, I don't think we even have to do a deep dive into this, not even
Mm-hmm.
any dive. We can just put our foot in the water and know that
Mm-hmm.
men get paid more than women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Men get paid more than women. It doesn't matter. That's just, I mean, that's, I think, episode 4, where our voices are going to be like really loud and no laughter and just
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah,
you'll,
yeah,
raging gracefully, as I say.
yeah.
But what I meant with the Tribune was there was this burst of energy, bigger teams. And in a short period of time, you now have in the Karachi paper city pages which are surviving on one
Yeah.
handful of reporters, and that's happened in like our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So my question then is that it seems to me like the quality of journalism doesn't seem to be enough to sustain a business model. So everybody comes in with like a big bang that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and they pay great salaries. I was at the Tribune magazine and got like a amazing budget for stories, and I was
Mm-hmm.
publishing like portfolio of photographers, and then I wasn't because obviously the idea was that this isn't really making us money. It may be very
Mm-hmm.
nice to look at, but it's not making us money, which brings us
Mm-hmm.
back to like quality journalism versus
Mm-hmm.
easy, lazy, easy to produce content, which we look at
Mm-hmm.
TV. Buther rightly said that switch on primetime television. Sometimes you'll find the same people as guests because
It's
it's
always the same
formulaic.
people.
Yeah, it's formulaic. It's you bring
Yeah.
three people on, have them scream. You're constantly looking for the viral, and that is making the money. So why have something which is quality? We're I mean, the Herald
But
couldn't
no,
be
that
saved, Newsline couldn't be saved. So, isn't that also bad bosses? By which I mean zero thought put into business models or long
mm-hmm.
term strategy, a complete lack of understanding of what technological advancements have done and
Mm-hmm.
how they've disrupted your industry.
For sure, I agree. Like a bad boss isn't just someone who treats you badly. A bad boss is also someone who doesn't think ahead. And I feel like all the examples that you mentioned, like, they have suffered from bad bosses and bad management. For example, like I feel like, a lot of people, at least in the Pakistani media industry, like which is where I have most of my experience, is that they're very afraid of change. They're very afraid of doing anything different. So it kind of just becomes like okay, let's copy Geo, let's copy Dawn, let's copy this. So you have the same content, and you're not actually there's no added uh, oh God, what was that thing? Added value to the piece, right? Like for example, if there's something that's running on TV, you're gonna see the same thing in the paper the next day. You're gonna see the same thing on the website, and it's the same for like every organization. And God forbid you miss a piece of news, no matter like how small. I remember when you were at the Tribune, you would get a call and it'd be like, आपने ये खबर मिस कर दी अब अगले दिन कैरी करें आपने ये खबर मिस कर दी अब अगले दिन कैरी करें and it would be like the smallest most useless piece of news and I would always be like why do we need to carry it like we did not think it mattered and it really didn't.
Well, that's probably also because you're not looking at it from the media owner's perspective, because
Yeah.
we don't know what relationships they need to maintain. And this is what I come back to when I talked about people coming into the media to buy influence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We had an amazing conversation with Babir Nizami
Yeah.
um, about business models, the media landscape. And he was great because he's a kind of, hope he doesn't mind me saying this, like a legacy kid in the newsroom, given the Nizami family. They've got,
But
and
he's a cool
their
kid.
work is, yeah, oh, for sure, cool kid. We only speak to cool people.
Mm, for sure. Hmm.
I
I mean, who
think,
isn't?
right, the dependent, he's doing such innovative work with profit. Um, and you had a pretty good conversation with him when I got kicked off,
I
thanks to
did.
Bitchly.
I did. And like, I thought it was really interesting how the dependent makes no money. They expect nothing to come from it, but they still do it. It's a passion project. And they're so, I mean, like, I've barely heard of anyone doing that, right? And he was even talking about like how people have gotten upset, how once they got called into like I mean, you know how you get called to the principal's office for messing up? Like they weren't called to the principal's office, but they were called to an embassy that they had offended. But like, they still do these kind of things. And his business model was also kind of interesting. Like they just do whatever they want, and everyone knows that usse kuch nahi hone wala. But then that also brings us to Prophet in Pakistan today. I think what he's done with Prophet is amazing because I don't you don't have that anywhere. Like people subscribe, I subscribe to it.
Yep, so did I. So did I. And everybody who knows me knows I know nothing about business. Even I told
Mm-hmm.
Babar that. But I think I do want to give a special shout out to Arif Nizami, who
Mm-hmm.
started Pakistan Today with Babar. And that's the kind of editor that we were talking about earlier, which is somebody who's come from a legacy media background. And I don't know. So I never met Arif Nizami. I don't know what his role was necessarily in the Dependent, but I do remember when he died, folks at the Dependent said that he gave them a free reign to do it. So I think that Pakistan Today, Prophet, Dependent, that group is examples of how innovation can take place, but it's also a reminder that when they launched so for example, they had a Berliner format, they had all color, they went all out as well, similar to its time when the news launched in the 90s. They went all out, they were
Mm-hmm.
all color. And then you saw that with the Tribune, and then you saw that with Pakistan Today. But where are they now in terms of the kind of budgets they have compared to what they started
It's all
with?
been slashed,
Yes,
slashed,
yes.
slashed.
So which is why I'm asking. Great work, but if no one's buying it, or
Mm-hmm.
if it's, what does that say about management and what they're thinking, and are they not reading the room right?
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they could read the room at all. But I also feel like, when you like, I also understand where they're coming from because if I was launching a paper, I would look at all these things, right? I would want color on every page. I would want colored photographs. I want a big splash. However, I feel like the market or the people, the consumer of Pakistani newspapers is like maybe 10%. I mean, maybe I'm really lowballing it, but I just feel like not many people read the paper. They don't have interest in that. Online, I feel like, yes, there is more interest, but I don't think it's that big. Like, it's still like a smidge more. What do you think?
Um, I still think that the owners and
Mm-hmm.
then the people they've put in management positions, and I'm just like, this is a generalization, they haven't really understood about how these technological breakthroughs have impacted both the dissemination and the
Mm-hmm.
creation of news. I don't think, I think they're kind of learning it on the job. I don't know if they've understood that the audience has shifted to digital and the advertisers have also shifted to digital because they're getting more bang from their buck. Wait, no, that's not correct. They're getting more bang for their buck from Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah,
They don't really have any incentive to advertise on um, news
and print,
companies.
no.
So now, what are news companies doing? And Badr reminded me this. He said that news companies are reliant on government
Mm-hmm.
for revenue, and government means tax money. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what they're reliant on. And when they're reliant on that, they're going to do all kinds of shady
Yeah.
deals. They're going to do shady deals that you and I will not know about, which is probably why we get phone calls or probably why we have to plug this person. That does not seem like a sustainable business model.
No, it's not. It's really not.
And that's bad bosses.
Mm-hmm. My question is, do bad bosses realize that they're bad bosses?
No.
I don't think they understand why we think that they're bad bosses or how.
I sympathize with the boss, having been one, but I also think it's important to know which battles to fight.
For sure. I mean, like, I think it's important that you let your team know that you're there for them as well. You can't just, you can't just like ignore them and do whatever the state asks you to do.
What is the one advice you would give? Like bad bosses, not like specific traits, but like, we've kind of identified what we think of as bad bosses. And if they're listening, which they probably are because they're wondering if they're in there.
Probably hate listening.
Yeah, hate listening, but thank you because each hate listen just means one more person listened. So I appreciate it. But what advice would you give them?
You know, in Game of Thrones, there's this part where uh, Sansa Stark says, "Uncle, sit down." I want to say that to a bad boss.
Yeah.
Like, just really just get off your high horse. Like, just calm down.
But to young people in general in a newsroom, I really want to say, let's organize. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what that necessarily means, but it makes me wonder. I was at the press club the other day and I was like, why aren't people striking? क्यों नहीं करते
Mm-hmm.
strikes? And we're going to talk about that at a study circle. Join us. I'll post the info about it. Why aren't we? And I understand there's fear. Like, I understand that if I strike or if I join the union, I won't get paid. And I don't want to downplay the severity of that, but surely people can come together and brainstorm and figure out how to organize effectively to sock it to the man.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tuba, what have we got planned for the next episode?
I have 4 words for you. Show me the money.
Yay!
I think
By
that is
yay,
a
I
pretty
meant, yeah,
exciting episode.
it is an exciting episode. We've got a couple of interviews lined up in relation to that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be talking to some people who are doing some, I think, cool things and examining why some cool things didn't work out. I love talking to
But
you.
me too, me too. I had so much fun doing this.
Yeah,
Also, guys, please follow us on our Instagram page. You know you want to know more.
open to ideas. So write to us, tag us, hate us. You know what to do.
Also, tell us what you want us to talk about. Maybe we can do that too.
Yeah, yeah. We're open to like, our DMs are open.
Yeah. Also,
All
I
right.
just shared a post on Instagram.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you, Tuva.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.